traer a Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Rabbi Simon Jacobson viene de Nueva York, viene a México para dar diferentes conferencias y a presentar un libro que se acaba de traducir a español. Y bueno, la verdad es que dije, lo voy a traer a la Yavne porque es una escuela que importa mucho la espiritualidad de los alumnos, el crecimiento de los alumnos, y como siempre, gracias a la Yavne por abrir las puertas a este tipo de pláticas, de actividades. En Rabes tienen un centro que se llama Meaningful Life Center, es un centro de estudios que impacta a millones de personas alrededor de todo el mundo. Y bueno, les pido por favor, estén abiertos a escuchar lo que va a decir, estén abiertos a que dejen una huella en ustedes y sobre todo muchísimo respeto ante la personalidad tan increíble que tenemos el honor de tener acá. Va a hablar en inglés, espero que todos sepan, si alguien no entiende muy bien nos podemos ir atrás y vamos traduciendo. Y bueno, aprovechar que estamos a vísperas de Rosh Chodesh Elul para escuchar estas palabras tan emocionantes que nos viene el Rabbi Simon Jacobson a decir a ustedes. Entonces, un aplauso por favor, levántense por favor para recibirlo. Muchas gracias.
Yo no sé inglés, ¿me puedo ir contigo y me traduces?
Sopa. Perdón. No, creo que no, ¿verdad?
Good afternoon. I'm going to speak in English, right? You said that?
Yes.
Everybody understands English?
No.
Perfect. So I bring you warm regards from a small little Jewish city called New York. You've heard of this town?
Very small.
Yeah. Only 2 million Jews. We came yesterday, me and my wife, sitting back there, Shandy, wave. And my daughter is also here somewhere from Los Angeles. We're here because our good dear friend Tamara, who single-handedly took a popular book that I wrote called 60 Days, A Spiritual Guide to the High Holidays, and single-handedly got it translated into Spanish. And in a period of 9 months, the book is ready and out there, and we're doing events to launch this book. So thank you, Tamara. Let's give her a great hand. And while we're here, how could you not speak to the future leaders of the world and the Jewish people? That's you. Did you know that? You are the future leaders. You take that seriously? I hope you do. So I will share a few words about that. When I look at you, it brings me back 50 years at least to my teenage years, when I was a rebel without a cause, looking for my purpose in life, and forced to sit in one of these seats, listening to speakers trying to inspire us. So I know it's not such an easy thing to do. Of all the audience I speak to, the hardest is to capture the attention of teenagers. Because I guess everybody's got a lot of energy, a lot of hormones, a lot of chemicals that run through your veins. So, but I'll try to share a few words I hope that are relevant and helpful. And if you're bold enough, I'll be happy to take questions afterwards. So, my father was a journalist. He used to tell me there are 3 types of people. People who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who ask what happened. You see the difference between the 3? Which category would you put yourself into? Anybody? You don't have to volunteer. Not a comfortable question. I would like to focus on helping you, which I hope this is what your school does, your teachers, your educators, your parents, is to make you people, empower you to be people who make things happen. Not just who watch what's going on online or in the media, and definitely not someone who asks what happened, to make things happen. You know, there's an expression, in every given situation, you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And I think each of us would like to be part of the solution. You know, not to be a conformist. And tell me if I'm saying a word that needs explanation, please tell me if I need to translate it. Not to be a conformist, which means to follow others, but to find your own voice. I would think that that's probably the greatest gift in life, is to discover the song that is unique to you. And I remember my son, who's now 40 years old and he has his own children, he came home from school one day, he was 7 years old, and he said to me, "Oh, I heard something really exciting, very nice." And, you know, as a father, if your son likes something, you also like it. So I asked him, what was it? He said, "I heard today, you were born an original, don't become a copy." That's what he told me. And I thought it was very nice to hear that, because so many people are copies. We copy what our parents do, we copy what society does, peer pressure. I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. So to be an original, instead of a copy, requires courage, requires finding your voice, your song, your unique qualities, not copying someone else's qualities. So listen to this. A few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I asked my son, talking now 30 years later, I said to him, "Do you remember you came home from school, you were excited?" He didn't remember. I remember, he didn't remember. I said, "You said you were born an original, don't become a copy." So he didn't remember. I said, "So what happened with you? Are you an original or a copy?" Now, he happens to be a copywriter. That's what he does. He's a creative director, so he writes copy, marketing, branding. And so in his unique way, he's very good with words. He said to me, "I'm an original copy," whatever that means. Okay, I never got to the bottom of it. So what I would like to address here is how you can find your voice and hold on to it and really make a mark in this world. That one day, when you look back at your life, you could say, "I wasn't just a copy of someone else, but I made my unique mark. I made my unique contribution." And in my mind, this is the single most important message of Judaism. When we read right in the beginning of the Torah, when it describes the human being, Hashem says, God says, create the human being in the divine image, Tselem Elokim. That means that each of you, literally each of you, each person on this earth is an indispensable soul that came here to this world to achieve something that no one else can achieve but you. I would think that's pretty worthwhile finding out before you turn 80, to figure out what your unique contribution is. So, with that in mind, I want to tell you that we have the luxury of living today in freedom. We're sitting here right now, not like our grandparents or great-grandparents. You know, if you were around 80 years ago in Europe, you wouldn't be the luxury of sitting in an auditorium here in a school. We'd be rounded up, Rahman al-Islam, God forbid, by Nazis and sent to a concentration camp. If you're living in the Soviet Union, back then, you could have been arrested just for being Jewish. And if you go back in our history is filled, fraught with all these types of challenges. So we take for granted. I was born in the United States after World War II, so I know what it feels like. We're free, but my father and my mother were not, and my grandparents for sure not. We're living in a historic time right now. I'm sure you know it. Look what's going on in Eretz Israel, in Israel. Our brothers and sisters are under attack. There are threats to their lives every day from Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon, and of course Hamas in the south in Gaza. And even though we're thousands of miles away, whether you're in Mexico or in the United States, but it's our brothers and sisters, our family. And I want to talk about that because, there's a lot talked about that when the Jews were being slaughtered in the Nazi concentration camps in Europe 80 years ago, 70 years ago, what did the Western world do? What did American Jews do? And many talk about how we didn't do much. And and millions, not thousands, millions were killed. We have to be able to say, one day you'll be graduating from the school. Mitzvah Hashem, with God's help, you'll be building your own families and have children and grandchildren one day. I know you're not planning that right now, but time moves. And one day your children are going to ask you, or you'll ask yourself, what did you do when October 7th happened? Everybody remembers last year, October 7th. We're coming almost to the first anniversary. It was Simchat Torah, right? I'm sure all of you remember that morning. Many of us were in shul. I was in Los Angeles at the time. When the news started coming in that there's been some terrible thing that happened in Israel, the south, the Nova Music Festival, and then the news, you all remember that? Just less than a year ago. And then the news got worse and worse, and then we know, without repeating all the details of the atrocities and the brutality, what happened. And ever since, it's not over. Yesterday we heard terrible news from Israel, 6 hostages that were shot in the head, mercilessly for no reason, by the enemy. And it's not over. There's still hostages trapped. There's a war going on from many fronts. So what are we doing? What should we be doing? Yes, I understand we're not under threat here, right here. Nobody's coming to attack us. I'm talking about the anti-Semitic activities going on. We have to be able to understand that we're one nation. And even though we're not there, we're still part of the battle. Every one of you, every one of us. Because the Jewish people always knew that every war is fought on 2 fronts. The physical front and the spiritual front. The physical front, yes, we have a strong, mighty IDF, Tzahal, Israel Defense Forces, and they are unbelievable, sacrifice their lives to do everything to protect innocent people. But there's also another side of the war, a spiritual side of the war. You must have learned in the Torah the story when Joshua went to fight with our arch enemy Amalek. Moses is praying to God for success. When Yoav, the commander-in-chief of King David's army, led his troops to wars, so David was singing and saying Tehillim, the book of Psalms. And Jews always knew that a war has to be fought on both fronts. A few months ago, I spent, my wife and my daughter were both here in the back there, a few days, and we went to visit a big military camp in the south of Israel near Gaza. I'm talking about miles, a few miles away from Gaza, a few kilometers. And with hundreds of soldiers, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds. It was unbelievable to see them. It's not what you read about in the news. Soldiers with such I would say even simcha, joy, and exuberance and positivity. They could be, next day they could be dead on the front lines. They're going into Gaza, into tunnels. I don't know if you know what it's like in those tunnels. We visited some of those tunnels. The Israeli army built a whole city, like a Gaza city, a mock city, in order the soldiers trained there to know how to fight in these tunnels. It's Imagine being stuck in a tunnel, there's nowhere to run, you're claustrophobic, like mamish in a tunnel. And the soldiers are going with such a positive attitude. So I shared a few words with them, and I was humbled, and I was actually overwhelmed to see young people like this, ready to sacrifice their lives. We have to be exactly like them. Thank God Hashem did not make us stand there maybe in the front lines with weapons and we'll put our lives in danger, but we have to have the same passion and commitment. When I finished speaking earlier, I spoke earlier in another place, so one student came over to me and asked me and said, what do you think about the Haredim? And the Haredim are the very religious, right? Jews in Israel who don't want to go fight in the military. And my response is very straightforward. They should be going to fight unless they're ready to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, like every soldier does, and study Torah with the same commitment like a soldier does when he goes fights the enemy. So I want to say to you, whether you know this or not, you need to know that you and I are just as responsible. Our job on our side of things, in this part of the world, is to be committed spiritually to Judaism, to Torah, especially as we come now into the month of Elul. Tomorrow will be Rosh Chodesh Elul. Followed by a month, then comes Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, the anniversary of October 7th. These are not small months, these are big, powerful days. These are days that Jewish people, from the beginning of time in history, always accessed to find hope and strength in difficult times. Does anyone know here why Elul is such a powerful month? Or I'll put the question differently, why Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year? Can anyone answer why Yom Kippur is the holiest day? It's not a quiz, you're not being tested on it, and I'm not measuring the success of the school whether you can answer that question. Why is Yom Kippur the holiest day of the year? Anybody? Are you shy or you don't know? Okay.
She says that it's the day of judgment and forgiveness.
But why that day? Why not Hanukkah? Why not like the 10th of Cheshvan, of Kislev, of Tevis, or something? Okay, I think you do know. You may be not putting things together, but I'll tell you the reason. It's a critical reason, and it's actually a very deep and practical psychological insight that will tell you the secret of the Jewish people. The reason is Yom Kippur is the day when Moshe Rabbeinu begged God for hope and forgiveness after the Jews had done a terrible, terrible crime. So you all know the story. This happened exactly 3,334 years ago. Okay? 34 years ago or 36 years ago, 3,346 years ago, I'm counting. The Jews come out of Mitzrayim, right? We celebrate on Pesach. The Jews left Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? 50 days later, they received the Torah on Mount Sinai, Shavuot. Okay. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up, and it says in the Torah, 40 days and 40 nights to receive the Torah on Mount Sinai. After he comes down, a terrible thing happens. Though the Jews had just heard, do not build idols and idol worship, don't have false gods, they built a big golden calf. Like total betrayal. The worst possible betrayal. Imagine, they just married God, and now they chose another God. A God made out of gold. Money. Moshe Rabbeinu sees that, he breaks the luchas, the tablets, and he goes back on the mountain, another 40 days. Comes back, and he's not successful. He's trying to gain forgiveness, because God said to Moshe, they betrayed me. It's no different than an infidelity of a spouse to another spouse. They betrayed me. What do you want? How can I have a relationship with people who turned their back on me? They chose a false god. So Moshe goes up a third time. Yom Kippur night, we'll all say, after Kol Nidre, we say the words 3 times. Hayom Hashem, Salachti kidvarecha, God said, I've forgiven them as you've asked me to do. Can you imagine a man, 80 days would not take no for an answer, and he broke down every door and said to Hashem, I will not leave here until you forgive them. Because human beings are not perfect. You know, there's an expression, to err, to make a mistake is human, to forgive is divine. So Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year because it's the birth of hope, it's the birth of forgiveness. Everyone here in this room, every person on earth has made mistakes. That we can't avoid. The question is, do you repair your mistakes? You know, trust in relationships is not built on perfection, it's built on accountability. If I hurt you, okay, that's not good. But if I ask you for forgiveness and you see I'm sincere, and I ask you, please forgive me, and I repair it, that's accountability. The worst thing is when I did something to you, and you come to me, or someone comes to me, and I say, no, it never happened, it's not true, it's your fault, it's that one's fault. In life, the trust we will build in our lives is not based on perfection, it's based on accountability. Remember that always. And that's what Hashem, God, finally saw and finally granted Moshe. Now this isn't just a nice story. It's relevant to our time right now. I'll tell you why. Because what happened October 7th, and I have to spell it out, over 1,200 tomorrow, like a wake-up call to say, we are one with you. You know, I see many signs going on, Kulanu Ka'echad, we're all one nation. And we all know that strength comes in unity. How do we show unity with the soldiers in Israel, with the people in Israel? Especially in times like this, we fight the spiritual war on our end. And it comes down to very simple things. No one's asking you or asking us to do something that's beyond our power. Simple thing that starting tomorrow especially, that each of us increases with intention, more than you do till now. Something in the world of learning Torah, something in the prayer, Tehillim, Psalms, and something in the world of action. We say that on Shlosh Dvarim, we learn the Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, on 3 pillars. Al Shlosh Amudim Ha'olam Omed. The world stands on 3 pillars. And the world here means not just the big world, it also means Olam Katan Zeh Adam, the small microcosm world of each one of us. Each one of us is a world of our own. What are the 3 pillars? Torah, right? Avoda, Milat Chasadim. Torah means cognitive conditioning. You learn something with your mind, something from God's Torah that puts your mind in another place, not involved in business, not involved in other nonsense, but something that is divine, something holy. Holy words of Torah. Avodah is tefillah's prayer, to say an extra psalm in Tehillim, to sing a song maybe, to read a spiritual poem, anything that touches the heart. And finally, Milat Chasadim means acts of kindness. Anything. This can be saying a kind word to someone. You know, we have classmates, sometimes you see someone in a little bad mood or we don't know what's going on. To go over, show extra kindness, show gratitude, you say thank you. Yeah, it's a good time to maybe think of someone that helped you in your life. And maybe what's wrong with calling them a month of El, say, you know, the new year is coming. It's a good time to reconnect. I want to thank you for something you did for me. Or if you hurt someone, to say, I'm sorry. Ask for forgiveness. You know, these are the things that make us human. These are the things that make us Jewish. These are the things that change the world. So they're not necessarily big, dramatic things, but they change things. And if you do that with the same passion and commitment like the soldiers that are fighting in the front lines in Gaza and in north of Israel and other places, then you are also a soldier. We're all soldiers. And we're all united in this effort. And it wouldn't hurt to let some people in Israel know what you've done. Maybe the school sends a letter to the IDF and says, hey, I'm sure you've done things and I'm not here to come with new ideas. I'm sure the faculty of the school, especially this past year, has done many, many things on behalf and the zchut, the merit of the Jews in Israel and the soldiers in Israel. But now, especially as we come to the new year, and as we get closer to October 7th, it more than ever is what's needed. So the point here is that you have to take responsibility for your life and your actions. And going back to what I said at the outset, that you have to make things happen, not just wait for things to happen. It's called in English, I don't know if the right word, in Spanish maybe a similar word, being proactive instead of reactive. A very big difference between reacting and proactive. You know, reactive means something happens, okay, I'll figure out what to do. Proactive means you don't wait. You initiate. You generate. That's the sign of a leader. If you want to find your own voice, to be an original and not a copy, the way to do it is by initiating, finding something you're good at. And everybody has their strengths. Everybody has their unique strengths. And now is a better time than ever. I said before, we are in historic times. We will look back at this time. You will, and your children will, and the generations will come and will say, what did you do? You'll be able to say, we want to be able to say, we were not silent, we were not passive, we weren't complacent or indifferent or apathetic, but we actually did something. And it could be the actions, it could be the good word, it could be the good thought, the different suggestions I gave. But remember, you can come up with your own suggestions. The main thing is not to just sit around. Now I know you could say, you're young, there are leaders, you have school leaders, you have teachers, you have educators, you have rabbis, you have Rebbitzins, you have, but you know, in Judaism, we always look at ourselves, each of us is a leader in our own right. Obviously, no one's asking you to become the leader of the whole world, but in your little world, you have to be someone that initiates. And that makes all the difference. It does. That's the difference between becoming someone that has made a difference, made a mark, and someone who's just waiting for something to happen. Now I want to share one concluding story that I try to share as much as I can, and that's a story that happened with myself and Eli Wiesel. You've heard of him, right? So my father was good friends with him for many years, and when my father passed away, I maintained the relationship. We were once speaking, and I asked him this question. I asked him, I said, is it true when the Jews marched to the gas chambers in the concentration camps that sometimes they would sing a song, Ani Mamin? We all know the song, right? Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin. And there are different versions of this song, which means I believe with complete faith in the coming of Mashiach. And even though he may be delayed or tarry, I still believe. Is it true that that's what the Jews were singing? So he said, we were in the barracks, they kept us at a distance from the gas chambers, even though we knew what was happening. But I never can say, I can't say I heard it with my own ears, but in the bunkers, in the camp, all the time, that song, other songs, prayers, Shema Yisrael, Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabba Kaddish, and other different holy scriptures that were said by the Jews whispering during their misery in those bunkers. So I said to him, look, I don't want to sound chutzpahdik. I don't want to be audacious, but it seems like strange. The Jews were in the darkest possible place. The worst time in history. They had all the right to be angry at God. Because they were God's children, the chosen people, and here they were being massacred, and where was God? Why was Hashem not intervening? Children, innocent children, innocent people for no reason. And instead of complaining, they were singing praises, Hashem's praises. Seems somewhat not like out of touch. So his response to me, which I want to share with you, is this. He said, no, the Jews were not out of touch. On the contrary, they were doing the only thing they could do. They had no control over the circumstances. The only thing they could do is declare with defiance. They were saying, you can take our bodies, but you can't take our souls. You can take our lives, but you can't take our faith. And we will prevail. Am Yisrael Chai. And if it won't be us, it will be our children. And if it won't be our children, it will be our grandchildren. So yes, many of them died terribly. But their faith did not die. And those survivors did not die. And here we are, I say to you now, 24. We have a beautiful community here in Mexico City. Look at this school. Beautiful young men and women. Thousands here. And you go around the world, thriving Jewish communities. As I said before, from New York to Los Angeles, United States, everything in between. Israel has now the largest Jewish population in the world. Schools, universities, thriving. We have our challenges. I'm not suggesting it's far from perfect. So they had some truth in their animanim. They had faith that that's what would happen. They may not have known how it would work out, but they had that faith. So I say to you right now that we are here, their children, their grandchildren, even if you're not a direct grandchild, we're all connected. And we have a responsibility. The responsibility is Hashem did bless you with life. He blessed you with freedom, blessed you with different gifts. And how are we using them? So we have to think about is what should we be doing to honor those 1,200 that were taken from us almost a year ago in the south of Israel, to honor the 6 million, to honor the 6 hostages yesterday that were killed, murdered. And the way we do it is we fight the war, we continue and demonstrate that their prayers, and even the prayer of Mrs. Goldberg, and the prayer of the Jews when they marched to the concentration, to the gas chambers, Animamin, that they were not in vain. The prayers were not in vain. Because we're here, and we will do whatever we can to demonstrate the eternity and the indestructibility of the Jewish people through our actions, through our Jewish pride, and we will never, never be defined by our enemies. We have many enemies we've suffered, but they don't define us. What defines us is our neshama, our souls, and what defines us is our connection with each other, our Ahavas Israel, our love for each other. Yes, our Torah, our prayers, and our beautiful actions. That's what I even suggest this month of Elul, more than ever before because of this circumstances. This month of Elul compels us and behooves us to do. And may we do our part, and Hashem should bless each one of us with a chesimatova, a beautiful, sweet, and healthy year for you, for your families, a year of peace, a year of love, a year of health. Only good things, both for us here, for the Jews in Israel, for Jews everywhere, for the people everywhere in the world. And that we should march into Rosh Hashanah proud and say we're doing our part. And ultimately march exactly the Ani Mamin, the B'Biat HaMashiach, the Geula Hamitid V'Hashlema, the total redemption of each one of us personally and the global redemption for the entire world. So be blessed, everyone. You should live up to your calling and be unique. Don't be a copy, you were born an original. Thank you so much. Ask anything or any comments or questions, I'm happy to answer if you do. Usually, high schools the teenagers are usually shy, especially with a new guy around. But
they'll take the questions home and then nobody will answer them.
Okay.
So
Again, great.
preguntar algo, decir algo? Siéntanse libres.
es muy abierto, contesta todo.
Contesta.
Contesta todo.
I have a question that once a student of mine asked me, and I want to ask you in the name of him. It's valid to have anger with God,
To be angry at
to
God.
be angry with
God?
God?
Well, as I said before, I think it is valid because we say Rosh Hashanah, we'll say Avinu Malkeinu, God our King, our Father our King. We have a personal relationship with Hashem. So when we're hurt, who do you go cry to if not to your parents? So I think we can cry to God, and we can. Remember, anger has to be always channeled in the right way. If it's going to be anger that's just destructive, then it's not even good to be angry at anybody. But if it's an anger that says, I'm so angry that you allowed all this to happen, and because of that I'm going to become a much better person, and you're going to channel and harness it in a good way, that's how I would, even psychologically, that's the right way to go. So I think we don't have to be afraid for God. God is very secure. And I wouldn't be concerned about God. I'd be concerned more about us. Like someone who told me, someone who had a terrible tragedy said, I'm so angry at God. But on the other hand, I need God now more than ever.
Wow.
So it goes two ways, Yeah, good question, yeah. Tamara, you want to come up and say a few words?
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
You can speak in Spanish. Anyway, thank you so much again, everyone. It's a real honor. And that goes on to any of you. Any way that I can help.
Les platico rápidamente que el motivo por el que Rabbi no está aquí es porque el libro del que les platico que él hizo se tradujo al español. Fue de verdad, fue de corazón y fue un equipo maravilloso el que trabajó conmigo para lograrlo. Es un libro que es una guía espiritual, va día por día, o sea, empieza el 30 de Av, okay, y acaba hasta el último día de Tishrei. Tiene ejercicios, tiene enseñanzas, tiene preguntas. Es un libro maravilloso para autoconocernos, para acercarnos a Dios. Entonces, con mucho gusto, si lo quieren adquirir, me imagino que en la escuela van a poder como apuntarse en una lista. Eso luego lo veo con Sophie. El libro tiene un costo de 500 pesos, es un tesoro. Yo tengo el mío, que lo compré hace 6 años, y no hay semana previa al 30 de Av que no lo saco, y me pongo a hacer los ejercicios, y me pongo a estudiarlo. Y de verdad se los prometo, se llega a las fiestas de otra manera, se vive la vida de otra manera. Entonces, quien lo quiera adquirir, por favor, avísenos. Yo con todo gusto se los traigo a la semana. Tiene un costo de 500 pesos. Y con todo gusto el día de mañana pueden ir a Monte Sinai. Va a dar otro tipo de plática ya 9 de la noche. Aprovechenlo, de verdad es un señor, es un rabino muy especial. Yo como lo he dicho, es un bombón. O sea, de verdad es espectacular cómo transmite la información. Tiene Instagram, lo pueden seguir en Facebook, lo pueden seguir en YouTube. Sube clases casi todos los días. Claro, está la clase de 1 hora, está la clase de 20 minutos, está la clase de media hora, pero son fenomenales. Ahorita entrevistó a un chavo musulmán y la plática que tuvieron fue así de wow. O sea, de verdad, una entrevista, una conversación bastante profunda y más ahorita por la situación que está pasando. Entonces, los invito a que lo sigan. En los libros viene su correo, o sea, viene Meaningful Life Center, el correo. Siempre le pueden escribir y de verdad contesta, regresa respuestas. Entonces, muchísimas gracias por recibirlo. Y lo que gusten, aquí están. Échatelas, yo se las traduzco. Échalas. Mira, si no te atreves a ser valiente, no sabes de lo que eres capaz. No, ¿cómo? Te lo digo, yo traigo una pulsera que dice valiente, que dice brave. Si yo no hubiera tenido como que la valentía de contactar al rabino, ahorita no estaríamos aquí. Entonces, atrévanse de verdad a hacerlo. O sea, ellos confiaron en mí y lo logramos en 9 meses, pero se necesita valor, ¿ok? Thank you.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that he said that he could say something, so I said, say it out loud, be brave and say it no matter what. Because if I wouldn't have been brave, this wouldn't have been done.
And I see they're so well behaved. They're all sitting there waiting.
They're waiting. I think they're waiting for the principal. I don't know where she left and Sophie left. But there's teachers there, so.
Whatever. But we did our job.
Do they get their phones back?
Probably, and they go out. Right?
No, but if they behave well, they'll give it back. If you say no, they then won't get it back.
They behave very well. They're
Okay.
excellent.
Dice el rabino que les pueden devolver sus teléfonos, que se portaron increíble, entonces que se los pueden devolver. She says that she took them to the principal's office, so she has to go and get them there. Algo que le quisieran preguntar, de verdad con confianza. No ha habido cosa que yo no le he preguntado.
Thank you again, everyone. God bless you all.
Gracias, jóvenes.
Make the Jewish people proud.
Yes.